Hello, it's Mackenzi Lee. I'm here to bring you more recommendations from my bookstore to your bookshelves. Can you hear the dog breathing really heavily because she just decided to lay down right under the camera? Hi, Mila. You're messing up my sound. Anyways. So I was going back through the books I'd marked as read on Goodreads, and I found a whole treasure trove of books that I loved and had forgotten I loved and had read and been obsessed with at one point, and had this moment of like, why don't I talk about these books all the time? Like, why am I not recommending these books all the time? So I'm gonna go through 10 books that I found on my Goodreads that I had forgotten existed and that I really loved, and I think you'll probably love them too. Book number 1 is A Brief History of Montmorey by Michelle Cooper. This is a World War II kind of story set on a fictional island called Montmorey. It is about a girl named Sophie. Her family sort of rules this island. They are also kind of the only people on the island, with this like eccentric family in this eccentric crumbling castle. They're kind of cut off from the rest of Europe, and then war is coming and some German pilots crash land on their island, and what are they to do? This book is told in diary format. So it has sort of an antiquated feel to it. It also is very much like a slice of life book on this fictional island. It is fictional, which kind of bummed me out because I wanted to go there. But it's a slice of life book on this fictional island, sort of about how these people are really isolated and how the news of the war kind of slowly gets to them, and then also becomes sort of this like adventure-y, thriller-y novel, but it's very like cleverly snuck into to the diary entries in the slice of life. It's awesome. Brief History of Montmorey by Michelle Cooper. Book number 2 is Au Revoir, Crazy European Chick by Jo Schreiber. This book is like Chuck meets James Bond, meets Ferris Bueller's Day Off, meets The Femme Nikita, meets, what's that thing with Charlize Theron that just, Atomic Blonde. Basically it's like kind of a riff on a spy thing, but more like YA and nonsensy and self-aware and tropey. This book is about a kid named Perry. He's going to prom and he's like, I'm gonna have a good time at prom, my band's gonna play. And then his parents are like, you have to take our Lithuanian exchange student Gobi to go to prom with you. And Perry's like, I hate this, but he does it because he's a good kid. And then halfway through prom, Gobi is like, so I have to go in your dad's car and I think you should come with me. And Perry's like, cool. Then turns out Gobi's like a spy. This is not a spoiler. It's like in the jacket copy / title / everything. So it becomes like this kind of like spy thrillery chase thing through New York City. And it's just like super fun and super energetic and made me laugh and is just very much like spy book tropey genre entry, which y'all know I love. So that's Au Revoir, Crazy European Chick by Jo Schreiber. Book number 3 is The Wicked and the Just by J. Anderson Coates. This book is so good. This is set in medieval Wales. It is about a Welsh uprising. It's told in dual points of view between an English girl whose family is living as sort of like lords in Wales, and then her Welsh servant who is sort of stewing angrily and resentfully with rebellion, and about how their two worlds sort of collide and then get swapped. It's super good. It's super historical and just like awesome. I love this book. That's The Wicked and the Just by J. Anderson Coates. Book number 4 is The Shifter by Janice Hardy. So this is a high fantasy novel. I'm not really a high fantasy reader. How I found this book is because we read the first chapter of it in like one of my graduate level writing courses as sort of like an example of a strong opener. And I think this was the only book that we read that semester that we just did like a sample of, that everyone in the class then went and checked out and read independently, even though the whole book wasn't assigned to us, because the first chapter is so dang good. So this book is about a girl named Naya who has a magical ability where she can shift pain. So most people who have this ability can like take pain out of other people and like push it out into the universe, but Naya has to transfer it to other people, which makes her like a pretty powerful weapon because you have someone that can just like shift pain into all of your enemies and take away your pain. So she has to keep this thing a secret until her sister and all the healers who use the pain shifting for good go missing, and then it becomes high fantasy adventure novel. This book is so voicey. Like that's the thing I remember. I still remember the first chapter. This was like 5 years ago and I still remember how good this first chapter is. Please read The Shifter by Janice Hardy. Number 5 is Croak by Gina D'Amico. Croak, first of all, has a very shiny cover that like doubles as a reflector for your bike, just FYI. Super useful, double purpose. It is the beginning of a trilogy. So if you like trilogies, I got you. Croak is about a girl who's sort of a punk rock, too cool for school kind of kid. She gets sent to her Uncle Mort's farm. Yeah, that's a pun. You can title the pun too. She gets sent to her Uncle Mort's farm as sort of like a shape up or ship out kind of a thing. And turns out her Uncle Mort is literally death. Like, he is actually a Grim Reaper and wants to apprentice her to also be a Grim Reaper. So basically like death as an internship. That's the pitch of this book. That's Croak by Gina D'Amico. Also super funny. All of Gina's books are super funny in general, and you should go read her stuff because, yeah, she's a good one. Number 6 is Belle Epoque by Elizabeth Ross. This book is set in Belle Epoque, Paris. It is about a girl who runs away. Her name's Maud. It is about a girl named Maud who runs away from her home in Brittany to come to Paris and be like, bright lights, big city, this is gonna be great. But she can't find a job because jobs are hard when you're a woman in the 1800s. So she goes to apply for work at this agency, which she thinks is one thing, but what it actually is a service that provides a beauty foil to rich girls. That means you're basically the designated ugly fat friend, to quote another book. So this agency employs girls who are plain looking or weird looking or whatever, not traditionally beautiful in the way that 1800s France wants you to be, and then pairs them up with rich girls to make the rich girls look prettier by comparison. Yeah, that would be garbage for your self-esteem, but Maud's like, I'm desperate, so she does it. Except the problem is the girl that she's the foil for doesn't know that she's like a rent-a-friend, basically. So Maud has to sort of keep lying to cover this up and lying to cover this up, and then there's intrigue, and then there's history, and that's Belle Epoque by Elizabeth Ross, and it's super awesome. And just like such an interesting premise and such an interesting time, and I'm pretty sure the agency that she writes about is a real thing. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. Number 7 is Of Metal and Wishes by Sarah Fine. So once upon a time, I said a prayer to the universe, and I said, dear universe, please send me a steampunk reimagining of Phantom of the Opera set in an alternate reality slaughterhouse that is going to like creep me out and gross me out and terrify me and fascinate me, and I'm going to be obsessed with it. And the universe was like, here, have Of Metal and Wishes by Sarah Fine. And I was like, thank you, universe. You've granted all my wishes. Of Metal and Wishes is about a girl named Wen who works as sort of a helper to her dad, who's a doctor in a slaughterhouse in this sort of high fantasy, sort of alternate history. It's kind of like, I think it's fantasy without magic, so it's like steampunky. We'll say steampunk. She works in this steampunk world in a slaughterhouse, which is gross. And there's rumors that the slaughterhouse is haunted, and Wen's like, that's probably not true, but one day she makes a wish, just sort of like to the universe, much like I did for this book, and is like, hey, this guy was dumb to me. I wish something terrible would happen to him, and the universe is like, granted, and something terrible happens to him, and then she's like, was it the universe, or was it a ghost, or is it just a coincidence, or is there actually a ghost in this weird, creepy slaughterhouse that I work in? I love this book. I love this book. It's so good. It's so creepy. It's steampunk Phantom of the Opera in a slaughterhouse. Come on, guys. That's Of Metal and Wishes by Sarah Fine. The next book, I've lost count of what number we're on, is Something Real by Heather Demetrios. This book is about reality TV. I secretly love, I don't even secretly, I'm telling you, I love books about reality TV, and I love reality TV. Guys, I watch so much America's Next Top Model. I would put Model Land on this list, but that seems a little too obvious. Okay, so Something Real is about a family who is a reality TV show. So they have like a huge family. This girl whose name I can't remember has always been in front of the camera, and now she's growing up and being a teenager and wanting to have her own life and starting to think about what would life look like if I was not being filmed all the time. It's a really interesting book. It's a really interesting look at reality TV and sort of the psychology behind being on TV, and also just like what it would be like to grow up on a reality show, and if that's the only way you've ever known, and to have to sort of perform your whole life for the world. Super good, super awesome. That's Something Real by Heather Demetrios. Next book is A Death-Struck Year by Makia Lucier. This book is set in the Spanish flu epidemic that happened in the United States right after World War I. It is gross. So this is a book about a girl named Cleo who decides to be a nurse to help people out with the Spanish flu, and is just sort of like an exploration of what's going on at that time and what it was like to be a person alive during this terrible, terrible, terrible plague. It's also about sort of being independent and learning how to be an independent person and an independent woman in history. And also I remember there being stuff in this about like turn of the century contraception and Margaret Sanger and things like that, which I'm always on board for. So that's A Death-Struck Year by Makia Lucier. And my last recommendation is The Unhappening of Genesis Lee by Shaylee MacArthur. This book is like The Giver, but more sci-fi? I don't know. I don't think of The Giver as being sci-fi, but I'm sure people will argue with me on this. let's call it Sci-Fi the Giver. This book is about a girl named Genesis Lee. She is one of the people in her society who remembers everything that has ever happened to her ever, because she has this bracelet that's called a link bracelet, and she like stores her memories in her bracelet and then she can access them. And that's awesome and cool, except that people who have these like link bracelets, their bracelets are starting to disappear and get stolen, which means that that's where you put your memory. So basically who they are and everything they remember is being literally and figuratively stolen from them. And Genesis is like, crap, don't want this to happen to me. Better figure out what's going on. It's super good. It's super sci-fi. It has really like interesting stuff about memory in it. There's some like stuff about religion that's kind of interesting. I really liked this book. Like, it was very captivating in one of those ways that it just like goes down really easy, but is still like really complex and really interesting. And yeah, this was a good one to remember. That's The Unhappening of Genesis Lee by Shaylee MacArthur. So those are some books that I recently remembered I read and loved, and I hope you also read them and love them. If you have books that you think get overlooked and don't get enough love, let me know in the comments. I would love to read your book recommendations. As always, if you want more specific recommendations, feel free to also leave a comment. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at the Mackenzi Lee, and don't forget to subscribe to Epic Reads on YouTube.